Speak to our parents out there.
So what I would say to parents and guardians is that it really is a partnership between home and school. I think as much as is possible, trying to be aware of what's happening in the school, trying to show up for school events that involve the participation of your child and your students.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Our Lives Narratives. Unique guests with unique stories from different walks of life. And we're here to motivate and inspire and transform the lives of our viewers. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time with us this evening. For viewers that are joining us for the first time, we acknowledge your presence with us this evening. Make sure to check out the rest of the platform, and you truly will be blessed by the stories of our guests. Thank you again. And if you do enjoy, or if you learned something from this episode today, make sure to subscribe at the end. Today's episode is centered around education. We all know education is such an honorable and rewarding career. I doff my hat to all of you educators out there. Thank you so much for all of the impact to our children, to adults, educators from all levels, whether you are teaching elementary, high school, junior high, postgraduate or post-secondary education. We say thank you. We do appreciate. We cannot pay you enough. Thank you for helping families and parents to instill values into our kids that will prepare them for the future. Today, to have this conversation is a beautiful young lady that was born in Ontario and moved to Maryland at the age of 6, and somehow ended up in Edmonton in 2017. She has been a teacher in Edmonton for the last 4 years. Very active in her church community, and she is driven by her faith. She has a deep desire for voluntary work and giving back to society. She currently volunteers with the Edmonton Food Bank and Hope Mission. Has a passion for helping others and does administration and personal consulting. In her free time, she enjoys cooking, being outside nature, and learning new skills and spending time with her loved ones. So you all help me welcome our guest for this evening, no other than Esosa Ikuobase. Welcome, Esosa.
Thank you so much, Annette. I am so excited to be here, and I look forward to our conversation. Thank you, viewers. Thank you for having me. Thank you for being open to the conversation that we're going to have today.
That's awesome. Thank you. You are our first educator on the platform, by the way, so it's a pleasure to have you.
I hope that I do educators all around Canada good. But I am super excited for that. And I'm also excited for what that means for your podcast and your series. And I just hope that, you just continue to grow and have
thank you.
The many first experiences.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
And we've interacted, quite a bit. So I do appreciate, and I'm sure our viewers are going to be blessed by the information that you will be sharing with us today, and just this passion that you have for, instilling values and information into our kids to help them for the future. So let's get right into it. As I mentioned in your bio, you grew up in Ontario and ended up in the States.
Yes.
What took you to Maryland? What was that journey like, and how did you decide to pursue education degree
Okay, yes.
or education career?
My life story is quite interesting. So I was born in Scarborough, Ontario.
Okay.
When I was about 6, maybe 6.5, I did move to the States with my immediate family. As you know, I do come from a lot of nurses.
Yeah,
and
that's
there was a point where the United States needed more nurses. And so they put out an incentive to nurses here in Canada.
Oh, okay.
If they would like to move and work in the States, they would basically help them to do that, help them with moving expenses and all that, all those things. And so my family was one of those who decided to move over there. And that is basically what started that leap.
Okay.
And so I grew up there from about the ages of almost 7 until I was 18.
Wow.
And then
Quite a while,
moved to Florida for higher education after high school. And then eventually a lot of my family had relocated from the United States. I still have a lot of family in Ontario, but some of them also relocated to Alberta, specifically Edmonton, just due to lifestyle balance. And, there are, like we're still seeing today, there are some attractive features
That's right.
about Alberta. And so I spent a couple years in Florida with my undergrad degree, and I was spending a lot of time and a lot of money traveling to visit family over like holidays. And so I said, you know what? Maybe I'll just move and just be closer to family. And honestly, it was one of the best decisions that I have made. And it had a pretty big impact in me deciding to go into education.
Oh, okay.
Because that wasn't actually my major in the States, because the education system is very different between the United States and Canada.
Right.
So after talking to some family, after learning about what the education system in Canada looks like, is when I decided, maybe this is something I can look into. I've always had a passion for children. And so that's kind of what made me, apply to the University of Alberta, transfer some credits, and then really start that journey.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and here we are.
But I'm just thinking Florida to Edmonton. Oh my gosh.
Everyone's like, why?
Yeah.
And so the amount of times that I have went through this story, and I tell them like, I'm really okay. And they're just looking at me like, blink twice.
Right.
If you need help, they're like, why would you do that? And it's true. I spent more years in the United States than Canada. It is quite the difference. But I think one thing that I'm really grateful for, and that has still made it worth it, was just being closer to my family. There's really nothing that can replace that. There's no amount of warm weather that can replace that closeness of having your village close by. So
I agree. Family is everything.
I can always travel back and visit, but
I guess so.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Oh, that's nice. Yeah. So I understand you teach Division 2 elementary school. Why did you decide on this age group? Share with our viewers a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I have primarily taught grades 5 and 6.
Okay.
If I had to say I had a favorite grade, it would be grade 6. But it's a very close age group. The grades are pretty similar together. So the degree in Alberta, it's a K to 12 degree, meaning you can teach from kindergarten up until grade 12.
Okay.
I went the elementary route, which just means that instead of just focusing on like math or science, like a secondary teacher would normally just teach one subject.
Right.
In elementary, you teach multiple subjects. So it's just that your university classes were more aligned to, let's give you some experience with language arts and math and social. So you can kind of get a taste of all the subjects. And so there really is no guarantee of a grade you want to teach. They never ask you like, what are you looking for?
Oh,
It's just you basically get an interview and it's like, this is the need for our specific school. And so my first year I was teaching grade 5
okay.
and I just, I was like, it fit for me. They're a fun age.
Yeah.
In the second year I taught grade 6. Third year I taught grade 6. This year I found myself back in grade 5. So it just happened. I don't want to say it was luck, but I've just found myself teaching those grades for the last few years. And it really does work for me. I think that they are intelligent. They're at the age where they're helpful. They still are excited to learn. They have a little bit of humor to them. They have a little bit of an attitude sometimes.
I was gonna ask.
But it's really not that bad. Like they're still not to that age, but they're still not, they're just at the age where they're still really cute and like willing and helpful and funny. And I think it really balances well with my personality.
Oh, that's good.
So at this point, it's now, those are my preferred age groups and grades to teach and be with.
Well, good for you that you didn't have to bounce back from one.
No, and it's
found your niche. You know, instead of kids that you can relate to and get along with. So good for you.
And the good thing about education is, you're still around other grades, so you can pop in and you can still see, an experience, maybe just for a few minutes, what a different classroom. And so a lot of my really good teacher friends, some teach grade 1, some teach grade 4. And so I'm able to still kind of see what that would look like. But I know enough about myself that when I go into grade 1, it is only for a few minutes, and so I'm really grateful for where I found myself.
It's amazing how, they say the fingers are not, there's a saying in my culture, the fingers are not equal, right? So basically everyone's got their own personality that they bring. And I find education is, for kind of similar to healthcare in a way. Like I'm a nurse, I'm a registered nurse. So I look at, there's different areas of nursing, right? So you just have to figure out what areas suit your personality, so that way you could continue to thrive. Otherwise, you burn out so easily. Can you imagine if you were teaching in grade 1?
Yeah.
And you don't enjoy it?
It's
only
definitely
a matter of time and you're out, right?
Yeah.
But then God bless you, you were able to figure it out right early on. So that's great to know. So I understand the curriculum is set by the provincial government, right?
Correct.
However, teachers have the autonomy to deliver or meet those criteria as they want it. So what is your strategy, or what do you do to make sure that you're meeting, if not all, but most of these requirements?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So Alberta education does give us outcomes.
Okay.
So they give us general outcomes, which are like, this is the general topics that we expect this grade to have covered.
Okay.
And then they give us specific outcomes. So basically like the skills that they want students to demonstrate, the knowledge pieces that they expect students to understand. So they do give us a outline and breakdown of the different topics that they want students to be taught about, and the different things that basically they expect them to be able to do by the end of that specific grade. So in university, we're always taught to start with it's called the program of studies, and it's accessible online. It's available to the general public. So in case anyone was like interested per se, like what are some of the things that my child should be learning in grade 5, in grade 6, in grade 2. It's actually general information. But in university, we were taught to always start with a program of studies so that we're not kind of guessing what we need to be covering, but instead we're seeing what the expectations are.
Right.
And then from those outcomes, we then start our own planning of, okay, this is what I'm expected to teach them.
Yeah.
I'm going to look for some resources to make that happen. I'm going to then break down how long I will be teaching this content, assessing this content, and those sorts of things. So it really does start with the program of studies, which comes directly from the government.
Okay, that's nice.
Yeah.
And how, because in every career you have, people that have been in the field forever. How do you see that support from the older, I would say, teachers that are already in the field? How much support does a new graduate get from this community of teachers?
I think that education, we're very grateful. We understand the workload that comes with it, and we understand the list of expectations. And so when a new teacher does come on board, it's mainly all hands in, as far as I would say those who work in the same grade or, grades that are close by.
Right.
Just to kind of give them certain advice, to pass down resources.
Right.
Even when I started, there's a big saying that's don't reinvent the wheel. Because in your practicum, which is your hands-on training when you're still in university, but almost graduated, a lot of times as student teachers, you are told that you're going to teach a couple subjects for the weeks that you're with us. And the student teachers, you go home and you open up Google Docs and to a completely blank document and start creating like worksheets, and you just start creating everything. And so we have this saying is don't recreate the wheel, look for resources that already exist, reach out to people and ask if they have. If once you figure out, okay, this is a topic that I am teaching a lesson on, you're trying to find resources that already exist for that topic versus trying to like make your own. Like it's good. We still want to be creative and we still do want to have those skills, but there's a lot of ground to cover. And so we understand the importance of sharing resources and giving advice, especially, again, if you're teaching that grade, you've taught that grade.
Yeah.
Even if you know somebody who could better aid that person. And even in the online community as well, there's many, even in Alberta, there's many teacher pages where...
that's nice. So from different schools then?
Oh, yeah.
From
different schools and even tailored to different grades.
Wow.
And so it's super helpful because a lot of teachers have joined those pages, and a teacher can just type in there and says, does anybody have a resource for this? And more often than not, you have teachers that are in the comments, what is your email? I'll send it, or putting a link directly under it. So there's a understanding between teachers that, we have to support one another, because that's kind of the only way that we all kind of make it through.
Yeah.
So
they were once in your shoes, right? As a new grad.
Yeah.
Well, that's amazing. I'm glad I didn't hear this theory of the old eating their young. That's something we learned about when we were nursing school. But I think even within nursing, that narrative is changing.
It's changing.
Even, working from in community, there's just so much help and support. Really.
Yes.
Because you're supporting the system, you're not supporting an individual. Like when that individual succeeds, right? The whole team or the entire system succeeds, right? It's impacted in a positive way. So
and the person who needs help today can easily be you who needs help tomorrow.
That's right.
And we are in the midst of a curriculum that has been changing for the last 3 years.
Wow.
And there's been times where it's changed before as well. But in the last 3 years alone, we've seen the math curriculum change. We've seen the language arts curriculum change. We've seen the physical education and wellness curriculum change. So it's like we've seen the science curriculum change, and the social curriculum has changed for some schools this year, for some school boards and districts this year, and for others it will change last year. So almost all of the subjects we teach have had a shift in that same program of studies I was telling you about with the outcomes. So even if you feel like you've mastered something today, you could easily be kind of like now this like, oh, I actually need new resources. Or even sometimes you're like, I've used this for the last couple years. I'm looking for this. I want to try something new. And so to keep that window of generosity and teamwork open, we realize that we all have a role to play in it. And I do want to credit Canada for honestly just being such a diverse place, right? I know that before, and probably the same can be said for the United States, there maybe was a certain demographic, whether it's age, race, that type of thing. But I think it's so diverse today. And actually, when I was looking into it, the demographic for age is now middle age. It's not so much more on the older side because a lot of, I think the University of Alberta on its own graduates thousands education graduates every year. So I think we're getting a big pool of
That's nice.
Younger teachers.
Yeah, we need more.
Yes. And education is a field where a lot of teachers stay in until they retire. So there's just such a good balance of different personalities and demographics. And yeah,
that's
a nice healthy mix.
That's nice. So if you're out there and you are looking into or thinking about getting into education, Esosa is saying it's filled with...
It's promising.
Yeah. It's, got quite the supportive environment for you to thrive. So don't think twice. Do your research and don't hesitate if you truly feel that is your passion, right? So thank you. I like that.
Yeah,
that's quite positive and encouraging. So let's talk a little bit more about your student or in general. We know for a fact, like you mentioned about diversity, these kids are coming from, different backgrounds. They have different learning abilities and different histories. So is there a system that kind of prepare you as a teacher with information that you need on these different backgrounds and history, so that way you're better prepared and you're tailored to assist or teach these individuals in a way to ensure that these kids are successful?
Yeah. So I can speak for the school board that I work with. It might vary from school board to school board or district to district, province to province, but I would like to assume it's pretty uniform on a certain level. So we definitely are given background information to students who typically have more of a complex history, or it could just be important things. So for example, allergies, of course, are something that is flagged on student accounts who have allergies. That's something for us to be aware of. There are sometimes court orders that we need to be aware of so that we know, who the student is allowed to be around or picked up by and things of that sort. Generally though, if there are no sorts of like allergies or super important red flags, there's nothing really major on that student's account. Outside of, let's say, all students, we can see their progress report, so we can see a history of their grades. That also allows us to be successful with them. Because if we know that a student doesn't struggle academically, that's one thing. If we know that, this student, the last couple of years has had attendance issues, that also gives us a heads up before we even meet that student in person. Sometimes it's, the student does really well in these subjects, but I'm noticing a trend here in this subject. So it lets us know that in that subject, there might be some things that we need to adjust in our structure of teaching them or the supports that they might need to be successful. So there is a way for us to try to kind of get ahead, I would say.
That's really good.
Yeah, on the academic side, sometimes it's on the emotional side. Sometimes it's a combination. So I that's one of the things that I really do think it's a great thing.
Yeah, at least so.
That schools are doing and school boards are doing. It's super helpful because, again, we can start to strategize and plan before even meeting the students. Sometimes we only have a day notice, right? And so the first thing we want to do is look into those files, look into
Mhm.
those notes, and just
Mhm.
get an understanding of what we're working with and what things we can prepare for to
Yeah.
better meet the needs of that student.
That's really good. Prevent surprises, right? And I like that planning aspect where you're already getting ahead,
Right.
right? And you're preparing for each student.
Yeah.
That's it's great that you guys have access to all of those information.
Yeah.
You guys spend most of the day with our kids. Is it 8 hours, right? So how do you inspire your students? Because you guys have a great because you spend so much time with them, definitely whatever values instill into them is going to impact them, whether good or bad. So how do you, Esosa, inspire your students?
Okay, this I would like to think that
Yeah.
I inspire them honestly by just being pretty open,
Okay.
being pretty honest with them, allowing them to know me as an
Yeah.
individual as well. Like I tell them, yes, I'm your teacher. This is maybe a little, there might be mixed reviews about this, but I tell
Yeah.
them like, I'm your teacher. I'm also your friend, but I'm your teacher.
Right.
Right. And so there's the education and there's those curricular outcomes and there's the learning, there's the teaching, there's the assessing. And then there's also just those moments of vulnerability and laughing and having a good time.
Yeah.
Because I think that society today, it's so fast paced and these kids are a lot different. They're a little more mature. The activities are different than the activities I find that I was doing like after school, and the amount of screen time is different. So sometimes we look at them as they are more mature than they are. And sometimes I just have to remember like the age groups that I'm dealing with here and just remember like, okay, what it's like to be a kid and the experiences that I want to be able to create with these students.
Yeah.
And so just making time for them to be kids, if I can keep the answer, if I can be a little more concise with it, but also just, allowing them to know who I am as an individual, the type of things that I like, the type of values that I believe in, right? And for the most part, I want to think that I have good values and good morals, right? But we're big on cleaning up after ourselves. We're big on if someone needs help, like offer your help to them.
Right.
And I try to pull in things like volunteering in the community and the different things that I do at my church that they can hopefully, have access to another good influence in their lives.
That's really nice because you are being vulnerable with them as well, right? Sharing what you like, what you value. I think that's really great. And I've had other reviews that teachers are like parents. And I don't see it as even like being friends, I don't see it as a negative thing, right? I think it just fosters that cordial relationship with you and your students. That vulnerability piece is quite important, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you want those kids to open up to you, hey, you better be you better be able to share something that's a little bit personal, if I'll put it that way.
Right.
So it goes both ways, and you're creating this safe atmosphere, this safe environment to want to share. Because honestly, we have, like we mentioned, kids coming from different backgrounds. They may not come from that healthy background. You might be that one individual in their life that's saying something different, that saying something positive. So I don't see that as a negative thing though. And when you say parents, like our African culture, right?
Yes, exactly.
If you did something at school and you came home, you report your teacher, you don't even try it. Because you get reprimanded, right? So I feel like because teachers spend quite a significant amount with kids, there's some form of responsibility looking at it as that was your own child. Like,
Absolutely.
what would I want to see, if this was my own child? So So good
Absolutely.
job trying to
Oh, thank
come up with
you.
all these
Yeah.
strategies to
And
inspire them.
it's so funny because even on the cultural aspect as well, like you
Yeah.
brought up a really good point. It's, you know, we all, it's very, the classrooms are super diverse. And
Yeah.
so just even you, in a way, you are another adult figure in their lives.
Right.
You are another safe person in their lives. But it's just, I'm just thinking and I'm kind of laughing to myself
Yeah.
because every classroom culture is a little different. I try to make a classroom that feels safe. Again, I like humor, you know, we joke,
Yeah.
we learn, we have fun, we do different things. But one thing I'm big on, and I can tell, I think this is just a big thing with children in general,
Yeah.
is cleaning up after yourself. And that to some
Tell
is
me
a
about it.
total culture
Yeah.
shock. But
Yeah.
you know, just even things like that, like if they're cleaning up after themselves is not a responsibility at home, right?
Yeah.
But we talk about the importance of, we don't want bugs around, we don't want like little critters around, and
Right.
we don't want to make our custodian, they're not here to pick up your straw wrapper. They're here to like mop and like vacuum, but they should not be like picking up your, you know, fruit gusher wrapper from your lunch that you saw. And so these are also things that I'm hoping, like I'm trying to instill in them, because you never really know what sorts of topics or what responsibilities everyone is privy to before you. And I still remember, like I can still remember some of my elementary teachers and the impacts that they have on me and the things that we did in the classroom. And so I just try to keep that in mind and just be somebody that, you know, I'm hoping they take away a couple
I'm
things.
sure they are.
I'm hoping in their next classroom they clean up after themselves, but for sure they're never going to forget, like, you know,
you're setting the stage.
Back to that cultural thing. There's some things that I'm just like, we need to do this. And I'm hoping that they remember that going forward.
That's nice.
Yeah.
This is a nice way to get into our next question. It's like you're all, right from inspiring these kids, you're starting to build this therapeutic relationship, this therapeutic bond between you and your kids, your students rather. So how do you ensure, you've already mentioned some, so throw some more light on how you continue to ensure there's therapeutic bonds that you are creating with these your students.
So from the first day of school, my goal is always to let them know who I am as their teacher. Because reality is we're spending 10 months together. That's a long time.
Yeah.
That's almost a full year. And so it's just important for me, again, with that vulnerability piece, right? I usually create a slideshow of some sort about myself, my life, how old I am, where I grew up. So they get the whole life story from the first day of school. I talk about, I show pictures of my family. Like, I just really try to give them a window into like who I am as a person.
Yeah.
And then I also provide them the same opportunities to give me and other students a window into who they are as people. And, you know, I go over like class rules. And for the most part, I like to think I'm a very laid back type of person and individual. So just the things that you can associate with just having like open and safe spaces. Like, we're not going to be rude to each other. We're not going to bully each other. If we need help, like, we're going to help each other, like that type of thing. And you know, but I'm very clear on expectations as well. So right away, building a classroom culture is super important to me. And I think that level of stability and expectations is also really beneficial to the students.
Right.
They do need that, I think, from day one. And so throughout the year, you know, as the routines become more evident and as students start picking up on those expectations and all that type of stuff, is also what allows us to be able to incorporate more of those fun activities. You know, your first couple of days of school, it's like, yeah, it's fun and it's all rainbows and this,
Right.
but you know, at a certain point, it's just like, okay, this is what we're doing in, you know, language arts, and like we get right to it. But as they really start to get the hang of things, it's when we're able to kind of incorporate more fun into I shouldn't say like it's not like that's when we start, but you can begin to relax.
Something to lighten up the mood.
Yeah,
right?
you can begin to relax, right? And let the kids have more, you know, partner work and group work, because those expectations, that culture has already been established, right? And so another thing and I really just started doing this year, which is kind of like a surprise to me in a way, but it's been really good so far, is I've started doing baking from time to time with my class, because baking is not in the program of studies. It is not a curriculum outcome. So it's not like it's just, you can't, as a teacher, you don't just like make up stuff that you're like, we're going to spend, you know, we're going to do a unit about this. Like it needs to be tied in. And so I think the first time I did baking with them, it was tied into the curriculum. It had a First Nations, Métis, Indigenous correlation, and it was actually baking a traditional bread dish. And so I saw how much the kids really liked it, and it was just so nice seeing them. And I'm a baker anyway, so then the thought kind of, I was like, how did I not think of this with other, before with like other students and like other grades? And I was like, it's beautiful to see like they're measuring flour and they're mixing and they're rolling and they're, you know, and they just took such pride in it, and especially being able to taste and I just thought to myself, I'm like, this is something that I need to continue to do. And so just like little things like that, honestly, just creating opportunities for memories for some of these students. I recognize that they're not doing a whole lot of cooking. They don't like, you know, for some of them, yes, but for some of them, these are the type of moments that I believe that they will remember. And
a very long time.
Yeah, exactly. So moving forward, I am going to be creating pockets, and we have since done more baking, and I actually plan to do something else with them this week. That is something that I'm like, I'm going to keep that idea moving forward with my other classes.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah. I wish my teacher baked with me.
Well, that's what I mean. It's like, I'm like, why haven't I thought of this? I never did baking when I was growing up. So of course I'm going to be better than any of their other teachers, because they're going to remember me as a teacher who baked with them, you know?
But it's like you set your boundaries though, like that expectation right early on. So you can be a fun teacher, but again, you can be that strict, you know, having a nice balance, right?
Absolutely.
Because if you're too strict, how can you teach them, right?
Absolutely.
But they know whatever you do is coming from a genuine and honest mind or reason, I would say. Then that really helps to build that therapeutic bond, that therapeutic relationship. So I think when we kind of talk about this right before we started shooting, it's not really what we're baking per se. It's like the memories that we're creating, right? And some of the values, like that teamwork, enjoying baking, conversations come up, you get to know your teacher more, you get to know other students some more, right? So I like that. There's a lot of lessons that you could learn or that you could grab from that one activity. So kudos, keep doing it.
Absolutely, thank you. I mean, it's even from the baking to the cleanup.
Yeah, exactly.
The cleanup. And again, that comes because that expectation of that understanding of, I'm doing an activity, we know that we can't leave this place in this state. Right. We know that there's going to be a time where we have to stop and clean up. And I mean, they even do the dishes, and I have kids volunteering to stay behind and wash the dishes. It's truly great, but more so for them that they're gaining all of these life skills, in the school day.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
Because I don't get stuck with the cleanup,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm like,
It's better for you too.
you know, like I didn't do all this for me. Like
Yeah.
you all
Right.
contributed to this. And so again, it's that understanding that we all have to pitch in
Absolutely.
on the aftermath of the fun, right?
Right.
So
That's really good. That
yeah.
is really good. Thanks for sharing that. That's an idea for any educator out there that's looking
and
for.
also for
Yeah.
any parent out there or guardian, I mean,
That's
you
true.
can also take that to your teacher and say, hey, I wonder, is there, especially like when you get to like the June, like the end of the year,
Yeah.
and then it's just like,
Right.
there's usually like a little more leniency and
Yeah.
like extra time. But
Okay.
I even tell the students too, I'm like, I hope you guys are doing this at home. Like now
Yeah.
that I know you can do dishes, now that I know you can wipe a table,
Right.
you know, like do these things go
At
with
home,
you?
yeah.
Like do these
Right.
skills, you know, go with you at home? I'm hoping so, but.
Yeah, our kids, they do a lot more in school than they do.
Yeah, I bet. Like
Unfortunately.
I'm telling you, I have kids volunteer to wash the dishes.
Yeah.
Like soap, rag, dry. And I'm just like, you keep it up.
Right.
You're going to be like great little like helpers one day. But some of them do have chores. We have actually
Which is
talked
good.
about this. So some of them like already, again, there's different levels of what is happening at home.
At home, yeah.
For some of them, it's like the responsibilities are a little newer, but
Yeah.
I find that depending on the student,
Yeah.
it varies a little bit.
That's
so.
good. That's good.
Yeah.
So this is so we'll address our parents now, parent guardians, because there's a responsibility that or expectations from us. Charity begins at home, right? If
Absolutely.
we want our kids to succeed, they're not learning, they shouldn't be learning this in the school. We should be teaching them and grounding them right at home. So that way it's easier for you guys to fill them with all of this knowledge, right?
Yeah.
It makes that process a little bit easier. So how can parents partner or continue to partner with the school system so that way we're doing this as a team to achieve whatever goals we have set up or whatever criteria or objective we're trying to meet at every level or every grade? Well, speak to our parents out there.
So what I would say to parents and guardians is that it really is a partnership between home and school. I think as much as is possible, trying to be aware of what's happening in the school, trying to show up for school events that involve the participation of your child and your students. Things like conferences, things like Meet the Teacher, things like Celebration of Learning. Really just trying to be engaged. And also when it comes to, you know, the child's learning at home as well. They do say that, you know, it makes a difference when a child comes into even kindergarten, knowing they're 1 through 10. It might sound silly, but just 1 through 10 already, you can see a shift. Right? Because then teachers are like, oh, great, 1 to 10, I can take it from 11 to this number in a short term. Same with at least hearing letter sounds before. Because what tends to happen is that you'll have some students that have gotten that background, that little bit of learning, and then you'll have some that have not experienced that yet. And that is what begins that difference or that diversity in your learning abilities in your classroom, even from a pretty young age. So I just would say ask questions if you're unsure. How can I be more involved? Is there anything upcoming I need to be aware about? How is my student doing in school? Even if it's like everyone's busy, I wasn't able to make the parent-teacher conference. Is there a way that I can schedule a meeting with you so that we can touch base? But it really is a partnership between home and school and teachers and educators, we understand that as well. And we also have that same responsibility to provide those opportunities to reach out, to try to engage with our students and their families as well.
That's great. So we have a responsibility. So make sure to collaborate more, right? If you're
Absolutely.
already doing it,
Yeah.
kudos.
Brittany did a great job.
Just keep doing it.
Yes.
And if you haven't, I know we have busy lives. We have single parents. We're busy with life and work and all of that, but we have to make that investment.
Absolutely.
Right? Whatever we do now shapes, our kids for the future. So let's keep investing
Absolutely.
into our kids, learning more. Volunteering, right? Hey, I'm speaking to myself. Get engaged, because I find though when you are in front of, when the teachers, like I say, wow, education and nursing or healthcare is so relatable, right? When you have families that are engaged, it just like creates this enthusiasm more within you as an individual that's looking after these students or this client, I would say. So get engaged. Show up, show your face, right?
And I think it makes such a difference even in the eyes of the student, right? Things like volunteering on a field trip, of course, as people are able to. But I think that students, they think it's fun to have an adult with them that they know, right? And I tell students, it doesn't even have to be your parent. It could be a sibling. It could be a cousin, as long, of course, as they are 18 or older.
Right.
Just having that representation at a conference, at a school sing-along, at a school dance. Again, as the schedule allows for it, there is research and correlation that, students who have a family that is able to be more connected in their education and what's happening, they tend to be more successful academically, socially, emotionally, and that sorts of thing. So I definitely think that, it's something to consider and something for all of us to work towards, that the more we pour into our students and our children, quite literally the higher chances of them being successful.
Right. That's really nice. That's great. So we've been speaking on partnership, collaboration with parents and the school system, the significance of that relationship or that interaction. So we know there's a lot of complexities in the learning abilities of these kids. How, as a teacher, do you ensure, first of all, you guys spend a lot of time with the kids, we've already established that. And you might be able to, you can identify these abilities. How, or when you do identify them, how do you communicate that to parents in a therapeutic way wherein you're not labeling the child, or you're doing it from that sense of honesty and genuine concern for this child, in order that the parents can look into it and do something about it?
Okay, so that's a great question. So we have different guidelines and different benchmarks for where students should be academically in different grades. It's really similar to taking your child to the pediatricians, right? When you give birth to a newborn, you go for checkups often, and they are making sure that they are a certain weight, or they are making sure that they are a certain measurement, and they say, okay, things look like they're on track. Or sometimes they say, we are maybe a little under in this category, we're maybe a little over in this category, but you know what, that's still okay. But we might just recommend that you do this in the meantime, or we might just recommend that you monitor their progress. And it's very similar in education. So for example, I'll just use grade 5 as an example. The province, a bird education, says in grade 5, they should be able to write in paragraphs. They should be able to do this. They should be able to multiply numbers of this size. They should. And so, of course, we teach those concepts. We allow students to practice those concepts. We then assess those concepts. And of course, we are always encouraged to give multiple attempts, right? Because everyone has their days. A child may not do the best when they are doing an assessment. They could be sick, they could be tired. We provide multiple opportunities, but typically there's usually patterns of saying, okay, this is more than maybe this child doesn't understand, but it could just be like, you know what? This child seems to struggle with a multiplication, with addition, right? With skills that according to those benchmarks, they should already be at or should have surpassed. And so, and of course, we collaborate with other teachers. We collaborate with our administration as well. And that is when opportunities like parent-teacher conferences are super beneficial, because that's exactly the type of things that we are going to discuss. We're discussing their progress.
Right.
So-and-so is doing really well in all of their subjects. So-and-so is doing well in this, but in this subject, we're just thinking they need to be doing some, weekly practice at home. Or so-and-so needs help with spelling. Here are some resources to maybe review with them in the evenings or on the weekends as you can. So those are the more milder conversations, which are just based off of our observations, but also based off of where they are aligning with those expectations from that we are receiving from the government. I think the other kind of conversation, which tends to be a little more in-depth and typically involves other professionals, are when we are thinking there might be a diagnosis or a deeper reason of maybe why they're having difficulties in their academics. And that usually involves the teacher and the administration.
Okay.
And then usually parents or guardians are also brought into that conversation. These are some of the things we're noticing. Are you noticing similar things? We are wondering or interested in doing some sort of assessment, which would then bring in an outside professional and that type of thing. Now, one thing that is typically pretty surprising, I think, to most families is that before schools can bring in professionals, so such as like child psychologists and things like that, they need a referral from a doctor. So a pediatrician or doctor of some sort needs to have also assess the child as well. Exactly, because they provide that referral.
Right.
So it kind of goes from just having an initial conversation to all of a sudden you now have this small village of professionals who can help. But, so it does start, of course, with the teacher, with the school, but it definitely can grow into a small village depending on the severity or or really just the individual case of the student or students.
That must be a tough conversation though, because nobody wants to feel like their child is not normal.
Absolutely.
Right? That's where, I guess that's why I wanted to, get your perspective on how you guys are ensuring that this conversation is therapeutic and it's in the best interest of that child.
Yes. And I think just like even like that term, that phrase, it's in the best interest of the child, just understanding that, it's coming from a place of love. It's also coming from a place of professionalism. And it's also coming from a place of, positivity and trying to see what can be done.
Yeah.
It's always better when it's caught on early. And in fact, I don't have a ton of experience with those initial conversations because ideally it's caught on when they're younger. And because I teach in Division 2,
Right.
I'm more so having conversations when these things have already been put in place over time.
Right.
I have sat in some meetings with, child psychologists where, they're just now, because it's a long process.
Yeah,
For some, it takes years. So a process that might have started a couple years ago, they're finally just getting tested by the time they're in grade 5 or 6. And then I'm then a part of those conversations, but not always the initial ones.
Right.
I think more often than not, parents and guardians are pretty receptive because they do understand that, it's in the best interest of the child.
Right.
And I think once they understand that they do have a village who is, there to support them. I can't speak to how they, people process things. We all process things differently, but I think more often than not, I would want to say it's a positive response.
Okay.
To
that's good. So it means parents were checking the boxes.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And as long as you're in communication, right?
1,000%.
And even I think parents can approach you guys as well, right? Like if they notice, just check.
Yeah.
And those student-led conferences, those are.
Oh yeah.
I'm glad we have those.
We don't often find that if I say, so and so spelling, it's not like parents are usually like, yeah, we know,
right?
These are, again, it's based off observations, right? And that is kind of where that that at-home involvement also plays a role.
Absolutely.
If they're practicing writing and reading and those skills are lacking, you're going to be able to observe that. If they're practicing their numeracy skills and something is lacking, we're already going to be on the same page by the time that we discuss it, right? I think the shock is more so when we don't realize those skills were lacking at home and then you're just hearing it for the first time.
And hopefully it's not not later. Right, it's nice to catch it, which you already mentioned earlier.
I think the surprises are more so when there hasn't been a whole lot of maybe practicing or monitoring at home, and you're just hearing it from the team, and that type of thing. But no, I would say from my experience, I've had a lot of receptiveness from parents and guardians. I mean, I like to think of myself as pretty easygoing, and I really do. To me, it's a partnership between the families and the school and the teachers. Like I send out weekly newsletters. Like I am super available to any of my parents or guardians of any of my students. So I think there's a level of trust built as well. And of course, not only just saying, this is what I noticed, but here are some resources. I think that's another key, right? Because it's not just about delivering a problem to someone, but it's also providing a solution, even if you're not the solution.
That's true. So pointing them to resources.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that. We know you've already shared or mentioned the diversity we have in our classrooms or in our system, right? So I think I'm going to read this question so that way I don't miss the intent of the message I'm trying to get or share with viewers. How can teachers balance different cultural backgrounds that exist in schools? And how can they facilitate an atmosphere that respects and understands the need of these cultures?
Yeah, that's a really great question, actually. Thank you for bringing that up. I think that teachers definitely can start with themselves as far as, their life experiences, their backgrounds, their upbringing. Again, just it makes us, in the eyes of the students, I feel like seem more human. Also, again, creating room for students to share who they are, their culture, their upbringing, what things they like, what type of holidays their family believes in, their religions, and that sorts of thing.
Right.
So just really having conversations, right? And again, that's just something that I try to start with from the very first day of school. So that environment is already established, right? And then with time too, kids get more comfortable as well. And I think too, just recognizing different, influential people, right? Especially there's different times of the year where some people, there's a light shown, you can say, on a particular group of people, and just using those moments to just make that connection and say, oh, like, this month is big for this, or, this is the anniversary of this invention. And this is, people, I think students, they make connections to people of their background, of their culture, like that representation matters. Right. And so I think just allowing the students to just have the ability to come into contact with different people, different cultures that resemble theirs, and again, cultures that don't. And another thing would just be like having posters and visuals that represent different backgrounds and beliefs and things like that. Children are big on visuals, right? And they're big on expression. So I guess if I could summarize it, I would just say create the space. Create the space for them to see, create the space for them to learn, create the space for them to ask.
Right. Nicely said. I like that.
Thank you.
Now let's go to you.
Okay.
What, as a teacher, like, how do you keep up with like competencies? I don't know if that's how they call it. That's how they call it in nursing. To keep up with your practice, to make sure you are in good standing. I'm sure there are certain programs or things that are in place, like PD days, right? Professional days.
Yeah.
That's one way, a structured way, for you guys to tell us about that. Like, how do you guys try and keep up? And specifically you yourself, how do you evaluate your teaching practices to make sure that you are staying on course?
Yeah. So one of the ways you mentioned are PD days.
Okay.
So that is something that those are dates that are set. Typically the topics are already set for us.
Okay.
Sometimes there is a little bit of flexibility and we are allowed to actually sign up for certain, let's say like seminars or trainings on topics that we feel that we can most benefit from. We also just recently had teachers convention back in February. So for the most part, we were downtown and we signed up for different, seminars and that were more tailored to our individual needs as teachers.
Okay.
Something that I tend to do as well is assess the resources I've used. If I use something one year and I liked it and I know that the students were also engaged and it just generally was a really good resource and effective, I'll keep it. But I also, we are encouraged to see what else is out there, right? Especially again with the change in curriculum. Right. It kind of encourages you that like, hey, that resource I was using last year, I actually can't use it this year. And so just, whether it's reaching out to other teachers and seeing what they have as well. Right. If it is like, is this something that maybe I could, make myself, because I know like this version would tailor to the needs of my specific students. But basically just seeing what works, constantly assessing what works, what doesn't. Trainings, seminars are always helpful because we can never know too much. We can never have all the pieces. That's right. And so me personally, I strive to always be better year to year as a teacher, even day to day, honestly, as a teacher and professional, because I am still very young in this profession. I have a ton to learn still, but the growth is amazing that you'll notice like something that maybe last year you were, it took you this amount of time to do this or this lesson, or this unit. And then by the time that you teach that content again, you're like, you know what? And that's only due to different tips and different strategies that you have taken on or changed to better suit, your teaching style, but also the needs of your students.
That's right.
So
yeah, there's always room for growth.
mhm.
Even I'm sure teachers that have been in the system forever, because they're dealing with a different generation now too, right? So it's like
Absolutely.
learning some things right from the ground up.
Yeah.
And I hear reflection, evaluation to kind of monitor your progress.
Yes,
And it's
for
kind of
sure.
nice when you see that your time management
Yeah,
is a
and
little better,
I even
right?
ask my students too, and this is what I mean, at least, once they get older and they understand certain concepts, but we ask them questions, at least I'll speak for myself. I ask them
Yeah,
too. Like, did you guys like this? No one's
right.
going to be more
That's
honest.
how we're going to know, right?
No one's going to be more honest with you
That's true.
than a child.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
want to know, because it's not just about teaching. It's that they need to be engaged to a certain degree,
Right.
for that knowledge to really stick.
Yeah, I
So
agree.
yeah, and there's a saying as well that teachers are like the biggest learners, and it's really so true, because
Yeah.
once you think you mastered one thing, there's like a new thing and a new
That's
thing
right.
and a new thing.
That's
So
right.
we definitely always have to cross-check our practices and our
Mhm.
techniques and our strategies, and yeah.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Self-care. Let's talk about
Let's talk about it.
it. So we know how emotional driven a career like education is, right? So how do you try and have a balance to have your sanity and make sure you're taking care of yourself, so that way you're able to give back more of yourself to to your students?
So self-care is a great thing, and
Yeah.
it's super important in, I'm sure, any field, any job, any career,
That's right.
teaching included. So I have found a pretty good balance of work and life.
Okay.
And so what that entails for me is working while I'm at work
Okay.
and giving myself that 48 hours to do other things that help pour in to me. And so when I first started, and this is very common for many, many, many new teachers, but honestly, for many teachers in general, is that there tends to be a habit of going to work really early, leaving work really late, taking anything you don't finish home, working through your weekend, and it often leads to burnout. And that's one of the things that they warn us about right from the beginning.
Yeah.
And I was a victim. Like the first 2 years, I was getting to work like 2 hours early. I would be like the last car in the parking lot. I would be at work into the evening. But it wasn't like it was like a negative thing, because you just felt productive. You felt like, especially when you're first starting out, there's so many things that you're trying to get under your belt. Like you're just trying to get started. And so it's almost like, in a way, it's like you got to pay your dues, right?
Absolutely.
Like you have to pay your dues. I'd rather have
lay the foundation.
lay the foundation. And it's in that foundation. Good thing about foundation is you only lay it once.
That's right.
The good thing about foundation is that if you do it right, you only do it once. And so that's what I kind of mean by like paying your dues, right?
Yeah.
It's that, hey, I have a lot to do. I don't know it all. I'm probably going to be slow. So let me go a little early and give myself time. Let me stay a little late, make sure it's done. But then as I, went into my next several classrooms, that foundation, it's already laid. Even the parts that you have to get up and running, let's say at the beginning of a school year, you've done it before. So you're faster with it. And you start to learn like, okay, I could probably do this here. I could probably do this during this time. It's not the same for everyone. We have different teaching assignments, right? A high school teacher might find their work-life balance to be different than an elementary teacher. A Division II teacher in elementary could find their work-life balance to be different than a kindergarten teacher. So it definitely varies. But for me, I try to work hard while I'm at work.
Yeah.
For example, I I typically work even during my lunch. I'll put my AirPods in.
Yeah.
I'll like put on a video or a podcast, and I'll be doing work at my computer, eating my lunch. So I typically just tend to work really hard at work because it gives me freedom that when I am off my contract hours, I can go and do the other things that are also equally important to me.
Right.
So I like to feel like I have a good balance going on, but of course we'll always have periods where it's like, you know what, I want to do this thing, or this will just take me an extra 15 minutes. I'm just gonna do this, or you know what, like for example, I went to Toronto last weekend and I took math tests to grade. And I was like, I'm gonna have the time.
Right.
It's something to do. And, you know, I did it. But the difference is there wasn't that pressure that if I didn't do it, right?
Right.
It was more of a convenience factor. So yeah, I like to, you know, self-care, it's definitely important to anyone in any career to make sure that you're pouring into yourself, doing the things that make you so that you can show up full to your profession.
Nice. And you give back to your community.
Yes. Yes. How could I forget? So volunteering has always been a super important aspect of my life. Serving in church has been very important to me. Spending time with family and friends have also been and is very important to me. And so these are definitely some of the things that I, you know, strive to make time for in my life. And then also just allowing myself to rest when my body is telling me that I need time to rest.
That's great. So work ebbs and flows. So be intentional, lay your foundation. If you're brand new to any career, this is a nice advice for all of us, or all of you guys out there. So
a nice reminder to everyone, right?
And a reminder
be nice
to those
yourself.
People that, absolutely. So thank you. You are representing such honorable career, and we are so honored to have you here today as we are, you know, start to conclude this session. So in one word, how would you summarize some of your life experiences and some of the things we've discussed here today?
So if I had to use one word to summarize, it would be rewarding. And that is because I think that I have had so many opportunities to grow as an individual and to learn, to pour into other people, and to also allow other people to pour into me. So I'm extremely grateful for, you know, my life's journey so far. And I'm grateful for, you know, all of the experiences, whether it's personal, whether it's faith-based, whether it has to do with my career. You know, I'm definitely grateful.
That's awesome. I like that. Great. So what is the hope for education for the future?
My hope for education would be that everybody could have what they need to be successful. And by everyone, I am speaking on behalf of students, families, educators, that, you know, that equity piece is there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Any key message or any advice additional that you would like to provide to our viewers? Anything else?
If I could leave a piece of advice and a takeaway to all of our viewers here today, it would just be to continue to strive for greatness, continue to look for different ways to pour into others, and also remember to pour into yourselves. Let's remember that together we are better than alone, and continue to do great things.
Amazing. It's been such a great time having you here, Esosa. I really appreciate it. And thank you for saying yes. For me, the first step is just to say yes. And then will take care of the rest. I'm trying to rhyme.
Well, I just want to say thank you for the opportunity. I have been incredibly blessed by this.
That's fine.
Again, I told you a while ago, little old me, because when I think of me, I'm just like, but I really have had so much fun with this opportunity, and I think this is a great thing that you're doing, and that your platform is really going to open doors for such a big community to learn from each other and grow with each other.
Amen.
So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We do appreciate you here today. I am believing that this episode has blessed somebody, or maybe reminded you of some of the things that we can be doing as parents or as educators. And not forgetting that big piece of collaboration and partnership. So thank you all for being here today. For our first-time viewers or even returning viewers that have not subscribed yet, kindly do so to continue to help us grow. It means the world to us. Until we meet again, like I always say, into our lives and our stories. Have a good evening. Esosa, say good night.
See you all. Have a blessed night. And don't forget to tune in to the next episode.
Take care. Bye.